Hello everyone, John Maher here. It's Thursday, the 25th of September 2025, and this is your weekly Grass10 grazing management update on the Dairy Edge. So this week has brought an improvement in grass supply. It's good to see that we are making progress. Average farm cover has improved again this week by about 50 kilos per hectare. That's 2 weeks in a row now where Pasture Base Ireland has recorded an increase of 50 kilos per hectare in grass cover. So we've jumped 102 weeks. So the average farm cover for the week gone by was 849 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. The growth was 51. Now there's an interesting story here for the last 2 weeks. The top 30-40% of farmers in terms of average farm cover grew 10 kilos more per hectare than the bottom 20% of farms. So that principle of grass grows grass applies in the month of September. And it is an interesting observation for the last 2 or 3 weeks. The average demand on the dairy farms is about 40. That's if you take the average growth of 51 then and the demand of 40, that's a swing of growth versus demand of about 10 kilos a day. You do that for the week and we're somewhere about 60 or 70 kilos of gain in average farm cover by those numbers. The average diet of the cow this week was about 13.5 kilos of grass, 4 kilos of meal, and about 2 kilos of silage, with the average pre-grazing yield about 1750. So again, we are moving forward. A pre-grazing yield of 17,800 is roughly where we should be for the end of September. Not far off it anyway. The dry matter range from 14%, which is the lowest in Moore Park, to about 17% in Johnstown Castle. And I suppose the other places like Ballyhaise and Grange were about 15-16%. To move on, then I suppose we look at the growth rate predictions for the week ahead. They look promising, to be honest. They will be about 50 kilos on average, with the lowest growth rate predicted in the northwest at about 40, and the highest in the Midlands is about 60. But the average for the country is about 50, which means that we should keep it increasing in grass supply. Then the way things are going, so which is good news to hear or see. The rainfall predictions from Met Éireann for the week are low. Most of the country is only going to get about 5 or 6 mils. I suppose there is a little bit more rainfall forecasted for the week on the eastern side of the country, but the eastern coast, with about 12 or 13 mils or a half an inch of rain forecasted for the week. Back to grazing management then and where we're at. So grass supply is a little behind where we want to be. We have made progress, which is good. It has improved, but many farms will not get to where we'd like to be, and may have to adjust to a target of 850 or 900. So what do the numbers tell us? About 60% of farms are still behind on target, and lower covers generally grow less grass. But given the growth predictions, we'll still keep improving all the same. While it's good for the week, that's unlikely to continue. So I suppose what I'm basically saying is every effort should be put in place to try and gain in grass cover again this week. The rotation length should be at least 35 days now, and for many farms they're 37 or even 40 days. To help improve average farm cover, reducing the herd demand by selling off surplus animals not in calf, troublesome animals, SCC, lameness, would have to be considered to help improve grass supply by reducing demand. Other tricks would be obviously feeding meal or silage or things like that. However, there have been parts of the country that are challenged now in terms of grazing, and you have to keep that in mind too. So while on the one hand, I'll be talking about trying to increase grass supply on the farm, some farms are really struggling with grazing conditions. This is particularly true of farms on the heavy land, and I'd say particularly true of the western coastal counties, certainly in Munster anyway. So to try and get around this, then for some it will be strip grazing every 12 hours, which is a little bit of work, but it makes sure that grass is utilised well and you're moving on onto fresh ground every time. For others, it may require reverting back to on-off grazing to keep grass in the diet of the cow. There are some farms struggling with high cover, very high covers of grass, for different reasons. Either they got delayed due to weather and the grass grew, or the cover was built too high. And once you get past 2,500 of a pre-grazing cover, this becomes a bit more challenging, and there are no easy solutions here now, to be honest, and it's not easy. So it's a case of doing the best you can. There are not many easy solutions. However, there are certain strategies that are necessary and certain things you shouldn't do. So having cows full of silage before they enter these paddocks doesn't make sense. It reduces their appetite enormously. So it's a case of, if you have to feed silage, graze the high cover first, then give them silage afterwards, not beforehand. So The 1 and 3 rule for meal might apply here. What I mean by that is if you're feeding 4 kilos of meal, give them 1 kilo in the morning, let them out to the high cover of grass, and then if they're staying in that night for whatever reason, or you're struggling with grazing conditions, you give them the 3 kilos of meal in the evening. So at least then they're going into the high covers of grass with an appetite. And that's what you're trying to do here, is have an appetite or an edge on the animals when you're dealing with high covers or difficult conditions. It's really about flexibility. I suppose on the nutrient management side then, like September 30th is the deadline for slurry application. People need to keep that in mind. The watery slurry can make a significant contribution to grass growth in late September, early October by applying this stuff. Equally, so does a collecting yard. So there are those who want to do third cut silage this week, and I would hopefully get slurry out onto that ground if possible after harvest. Given the weather forecast for the week, many will be able to have a look at doing this. I suppose in terms of reseeds then, we've had damp weeks now for the last while. This week will present a different climate, I suppose, in terms of a lot less rainfall. I'm based in Cork here. We've had 3 dry days now, so in a row. So, the chance to spray or graze this week will have to be made by many now, and to take this opportunity with ground conditions improving, because reseeds are generally that bit softer. Where we have the dock leaf at the size of where most of the dock leaves are the size of a €2 coin, spraying should take place. It was always better to graze earlier rather than later. It's always better to keep the reseeds on a short rotation as well, so the grass doesn't get too far ahead, so you can get in, get out fast. So when I talk about a 35, 40-day rotation for most of the farm, reseed should be closer to 20, 25 days. And if you haven't grazed your reseed yet this autumn, going in, getting a light grazing off it mightn't be the worst idea in the world. This week's newsletter also includes a piece of research looking at the use of protected urea as a source of nitrogen versus CAN as a source of nitrogen fertilizer in 2025. And after 6 rotations in work done by my colleagues here in Moore Park on 3 different sites, Athenry, Clonakilty and Moore Park, there was no difference in grass production across the 3 sites to either source of nitrogen fertilizer. So many would have expected that anyway. I suppose to move on then to our last piece of business for today, which is our farmer feature. Ken Gill was the organic category winner of the Grass10 Farmer of the Year, and he's a suckler farmer. And you might say, why would I feature the suckler farmer in this podcast? But he's organic, and for him, clover is a must, and he cannot function properly or grow grass without it. He is going to do close, I know it's a very good year, but close on 9 tons of grass production this year on an organic farm, which is, impressive now. He's done 7 or 8 in the past. But why am I telling you this story? Well, it's very simple. His motto for clover, it's graze light, graze tight, and the clover will persist a lot better. So, on that note, I suppose is a good way to finish. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website. And the link to the newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We would like to thank all those that support the Grass10 campaign, Grass10 Agro, AIB, Department of Agriculture, FPD and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I will talk to you again next week. So, best of luck and good farming.